I think the book you're currently writing, Jordan, is certainly worth talking about because there is so much wisdom and truth filled throughout the whole thing.
Oh, thanks.
Um, I mean, just starting with the prayers that you have, I mean, they're spot on. They're humble. They're for the heart, from the heart, and you're asking for the right things.
Yeah.
Not many, when people pray, a lot of times it's either not from the heart or they're asking for the wrong things. Yours are truly spot on with someone who's deep into the spiritual life. Dear God, I humbly ask you to remove any blocks to having you fully capture my heart. Beautiful. Dear God, I prefer my only happiness come from connection to you and not this world. For if I'm truly devoted to you, pain and pleasure won't make any difference to me. Beautiful. So
Mm,
true.
yeah.
Lord, I can do nothing better without you. Please keep me from falling out of alignment and please remove defects in my character. Wonderful. Lord, turn my interest away from seeking worldly pleasures to fill the void, as these might distract me from connecting to you. Just beautiful. And then one more here. God, I cannot manage my own reactions through my will. I humbly ask you to open my heart to you and others. I mean, these are beautiful prayers that will grant a lot of merit from the Lord. He
Th-
loves humility, he loves sincerity from the depth of your heart, and asking for these type of things. Help me fill the void with your love, with your presence, with your word, instead of filling it with worldly pleasures that don't fill the void. Instead, you end up being more empty than you were before, and you're a hamster in a wheel constantly chasing it, and it will never satisfy or gratify the human heart. Believe me, I've tried. Um, Another really cool thing that I remember that I read in there, you mentioned something that's just so on point, and I want to point it out. Um, Something about how God's voice can be heard in silence. And that is so true. Anytime anyone has ever received a locution from the Lord, where you can actually hear his voice speaking to you, anytime someone has had a profound spiritual encounter with the Lord, it's always in silence. Always in silence. God speaks to the human heart in silence, right? So that's why it's so important to remove all the distractions and all the noise from your life in order that it's truly mano a mano. Um, I have never received any locutions. I have received many profound movements of the heart and been flooded with grace. But those have all happened in personal one-on-one encounters that were in silence. And that's goes back to why I recommend anyone who's seeking God um, to go to church when there's perhaps no one else there or just a few random people there, because it is in silence that God speaks to the human heart. You can't hear his voice if you're distracted or if there's noise around you or if you're in the world. And it doesn't have to be a church that's simply where I have encountered him and have had many profound spiritual experiences, but it could be in the silence of your room at night, right? But whether you realize it or not, you're so spot on there because if you truly want to hear God's voice, and you want to hear him speak to your heart and reveal himself to you, tell you what his will is for you, silence is paramount.
For me, as I said many times, I don't know if there's a God, and so I'm saying these prayers. But one of the benefits of the silence is I've been trying to meditate for years, unsuccessfully, really. I'd sit there, I do it every night, but like it's just thought, 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 thought. So if I suddenly feel like, okay, the divine being is waiting for me to shut up so something could be said, then it suddenly puts a more energy into the silence and during the day as well. So it's like I see some complaint or aspiration or concern arising or some chasing for some conditional form-based, joy.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, like I like remember my chart, or pray or the
Mhm.
redemptive suffering thing. I try something just to shake myself loose. But then if I can go into that silence with the presumption that that's necessary to connect, I think that has a
Mhm.
benefit even if I never hear uh, God.
Right. No, absolutely. That's that's going to be the best shot for any of us to hear him or
Yeah.
experience him.
And then I
Um,
think the other thing, I think was the third prayer you mentioned, where I'm like, I need God's help to remove these patterns or these thoughts, right? And I think without that, I think what a lot of us do is we're like, we have a thought we don't like, it's not very saintly or it's not very
right.
nice. And then we're suddenly horrified and we try to suppress it or we judge ourselves or we try to replay it. Like, no, this is a sign that I really can't manage this mind that's producing
Yeah.
these things. And then suddenly I'm like, it's out of my hands. And I can immediately get back to what I want to be rather than associating myself and blaming myself for having thoughts that are, let's say, less than charitable.
It's so interesting you mentioned that, Jordan, because that's something that I struggle with to this day, and I think it's just part of the human condition. There are thoughts that arise in our brain that are not from our heart. There are thoughts that come into our brain from outside of ourselves. I would call this the devil planting evil thoughts and trying to make you buy into them. Call it whatever you want. The point is I like every day this week, I have just had just, at random times, just the most horrible, profane, blasphemous, awful thought will pop into my head. It could be something extremely sexually perverse. It could be something extremely violent. And I know that this is not me. So when that happens, the way I counteract it is I immediately go to what I've been doing and it works. I immediately go to God and say, God, this is not my thought. I do not feel this way. I do not support this. I don't want this. Please remove this thought from me. And it works.
Mm.
When I do that, the thought dissipates, it goes away. But I'm having to do this every day. Like for the
Yeah.
last couple weeks, just these unimaginably profane, blasphemous, just inhumane thoughts will just pop into my brain, which is not me at all. And I know it's not me. I say, Lord, I do not want these thoughts. I do not want these thoughts in my brain. Please take them away from me. And it goes away.
So if you admitted this in the seminary, do you think people would be horrified? Would they say, "Oh yeah, me too"? Like, how do you think it would be received?
Since I think it's universal, I think it's a part of the human condition. I think that everyone experiences this, unless you're a child, right? Obviously,
500 years ago in seminary, do you think the same understanding was there?
that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that, but I'd venture to say no.
I mean, I feel like there's an evolution of understanding. Um, and I've always been against this idea of the demons putting thoughts, but by having the demon ego mind, because in
Yeah.
spirituality they call it the ego, in psychology they call it the mind. So if
Mhm.
we don't have to define what it is, but by framing it that way, even as a demon, um, then suddenly there's some wiggle room where if it's me, then I'm responsible for it, and I'm a bad person for having it.
Right. Right.
Um, I'm perhaps different than you, or maybe not, but I have this thing in the book you saw, DEMSH. So the first part is demon ego mind, which is pushing us into this purpose agenda direction, which I associate with Cain, and
Mhm.
the limits,
Mhm.
avoidance, and boundaries, which I associate with Abel. But you can switch those two brothers.
Mhm.
Um, but like but if I look at it as the demon, the ego, the mind doesn't realize it or doesn't remember, it's part of this program to move me to surrender and humility because I'll keep trying to get conditional joy, peace, and love, trying to get control, keep trying to manage, and then eventually at some point, maybe when you're 59, you're like, I can't manage this, I can't do this, or after a loss or addiction, and
Mhm.
then you move into surrender. So
Right.
unless and humility, I believe unless you have this demon ego mind, whichever name you use making you try, and exhausting you. So it's
Right.
it's an ally. It's like Snape in Professor Snape in Harry Potter. It's the same kind of thing.
No, absolutely. And I love your framework, Jordan, the whole DEM, demon ego mind,
Yeah.
and how it opposes humility and surrender. I'm fully on board with that. You're 100% right. The DEM, demon ego mind, it does not serve us in any way. All it does is detach us from God.
Right.
It
But
severs the
you say it
connection.
doesn't serve us in any way, and I say it is. It's making us have to surrender because it doesn't work. But if you didn't have that, you why would you surrender? You'd be like, everything's fine. I'm at
Right.
peace. You need that tension. It's like the pearl and the that's the dust in the oyster makes the pearl. It's like you need that kind of
No, it's true.
thing.
You're right. You're absolutely right. I think what I meant was it does yeah force you to constantly make the effort and constantly pray, right? To remove God help. So that part is yeah, absolutely. I think and another point is I can't remember which saint said it, but he or she said there are no saints without temptation. There are
Yeah.
no saints without temptation. So you
Yeah.
need temptation in order to cultivate virtue.
Yeah. Yeah. And even with Jesus, didn't the devil say, "Hey, I can give you all of this, just give up." And so he had to say no in order for him to then move to the next stage.
It's
If he had never
true.
been
I know.
tempted, there's not that impetus to move to the next stage.
It's absolutely true.
Which I would say also, if you watch Loki and Thor in the Marvel movies, it's the same thing. Like Thor is like not really responsible. He's partying all the time. It's not until Loki creates the problem that Thor has to step up. So I think
True.
this is an idea that exists in a lot of places.
No, absolutely. You're right. No, temptation is necessary for us to cultivate virtue because if we're not overcoming trials, if we're not being sent these hardships, whether mental or physical, how can we practice the virtue of humility? How can we practice the virtue of prayer? Like you were just saying, if everything is going rosy.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that it is this way, but it is sure challenging.
Yes.
And I think it's meant to be, you know.
Yes.